Hi everyone, Julia here recording this February 20th, 2024. We're having a nice spring day in the dead of winter. One of the good things about living in the Maya and the illusion, anything's possible. So this is minor. So yeah, I've been doing my Mace energy method practitioner training homework, and it is very involved. They really want the practitioners to have a good grasp of the concepts that allowed John Mace to uncover this process. And it's simple, but it's not what we're familiar with, so it takes a little bit of focus and attention to wrap your mind around it. And basically we're spiritual beings and we're pure energy, and everything needs energy to function. Our bodies cannot function without the energy of us, the spiritual being. Our mind cannot do its only job, which is to create images of whatever we focus our attention on. Cannot even do that process if it doesn't get its energy from us, the spiritual or the energy being. So here we are, energy beings, and we exist simultaneously in the energy universe and the material universe, where we are now. And we have our own universe as well, which is our perspective that is developed via our spiritual being plus all of our identities. That's our person. That's the person that we are here. So we are this person, and then we are a spiritual being that is part of the person, is the core of the person, because there would be no person without the spiritual being, because there would be no energy to activate it, the body and the mind. So that's how that all works. And so the spiritual being, in order to navigate this material realm along with the body, it needs to create identities. Because if you think of the first time you drove a car, especially if it was a manual like over here in Europe, you really have to focus on everything you're doing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be driving a car, but any task that initially it takes a lot of focus. But then once you get good at it, it's second nature. Anyone who drives knows that they can be thinking of a million things and be driving and not even know how they got from one place to the other. And that's because the driver identity takes over that job. Every time you're driving, the driver identity steps up, drives the car. And if that wasn't the case, then every time we drove, it would be like the first time we drove. So that's why it's a necessity to create these identities. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to function in this material realm. So we have lots of identities: parent, sibling, son, daughter, teacher, worker, philosopher, whatever. Lots of different identities. And we knowingly create the pro-survival identities, like the ones just mentioned. And then we unintentionally create non-survival negative identities. And these are created during a time of what John Mace refers to as upset, during upsets. And upset is just when something happens that you didn't really want to happen. And there's always the saying, it's not what happens, it's how you respond. And if your person is not infiltrated with negative identities, then you'll respond to upset in a rational way. And you might have moments where you have negative emotions, but you just push through those and they go away, and it doesn't stick there as a trauma. But what happens usually early on, we have a trauma, an upset, and the upset makes us feel a negative emotion. And it's non-survival to stay in that negative emotion, so we're always pushing it away. So this negative emotion wants to well up, and we're always pushing it away, so that creates a negative energy ridge. And that puts us in a situation where we need to make a decision, because we're in a scenario that is not pro-survival. It is not pro-survival to be down in the mouth and focused inward. You don't get the big picture. You won't make proper decisions. So we make a decision when we're in that negative space, and often a decision that's made is, I'm not good enough. So now that decision's been made by the person, but the spiritual being is like, that's not true. I am perfect. I am indestructible. I'm eternal. I'm omniscient. I'm omnipotent. I am good enough. So the resistance to that decision from the spiritual being helps build up this energy ridge, along with the resistance to the emotion. So you got double resistance. You got resistance to the emotion, and you got resistance to the negative decision that was made because of the bad emotion. So these all build up this energy ridge, which is what creates a negative identity. So that feeling and that decision just sit there in that energy ridge, and when another upset comes along, they'll get triggered, and there'll be a bad reaction, a negative reaction, and it'll potentially build more and more negative identities. So, we always feel like it's the upset that caused the problem, or the other person that's causing the problem. But that's really not the case, because, again, it's our response to how things are, not how they are, but also because, let's see, what was I saying? So yeah, let's see, in the negative response, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, so, sorry about that, guys. I don't have enough editing skills to try to edit this out. But, we think we need to eliminate upsets to have a happy life. But what we really need to eliminate is negative identities. And it doesn't matter if we perceive that the negative identity came after the upset. And you can see how that builds further upsets just from the scenario I just gave you. But it is the prime mover that causes the negative reactions in the first place, because a reaction is a non-survival response, whereas a response is a pro-survival. So if you don't have these negative identities, you respond to future upsets as opposed to reacting them in a negative way and potentially building more negative identities. So you can see how that can start snowballing, and before you know it, you just have all these negative identities running the show. And the more they get to run the show, the more powerful they get, and the less you, the spiritual being, the energy being, is allowed to shine through and feel who you really are. And so when you eliminate these negative identities, you just create them with this amazing, simple procedure. Voila, you're back. You, the spiritual being. And that's why people feel so good, and it's the same feeling people get in that meditative state, that people so often talk about, where they just feel so light and loved and at peace. And there is part of the process in Mace Energy Method where you are in suspended animation, so you are in that timelessness. And then when you just create these negative identities, you can just go back there so easily and feel that lightness and that love and light, right? So so just kind of talking through what I'm learning out loud here, and just really exciting, so exciting to be a part of this. Jerry Marzinski is just putting more and more interviews out there, and every time he's just like, he's really promoting this, and I think the wave is hitting, because now we have a quick, easy way to heal. Oh my gosh. And it works on kids. So I'm setting up an interview with John Avery, who worked with John Mace developing this process. He's in his 90s, and he's mostly worked with children, so I'm going to focus on that aspect a lot. And so I'm just really excited, and I know that there's a few subscribers here that are already planning to have sessions, and that's awesome. I'd love to hear your feedback. And this is our time, man. We can all heal. And imagine if all the kids heal before they have kids. The world could really change in a generation. I'm not saying that's going to happen, that enough people will do it, but the ones who do it, their world will change. That's for sure. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Remember to stay focused on what you want and help others if you can. Ciao, ciao.